All right, the beginning of the week and lots of very many interesting headlines. And of course, we'll be tracking some of those stories later on the show. But let's first take a look at how early stage investments in the startup segment are shaping up. Well, according to Innoven Capital's Early Stage Investment Insights Report 2025, seed stage funding is seeing sharper investor selectivity and a growing appetite, with 1 in 3 investors that are backing a pre-revenue startups in over 20% of their deals. Consumer, D2C, B2B and deep tech, they continue to be sectors that are attracting investors. Generative AI remains the biggest buzz. 70% of investors are eyeing this space, and half of them have already deployed capital in the Gen AI space. In fact, to talk more about that report and the findings, we now have with us Tarana Lalwani, partner Innoven Capital. Thank you very much, Tarana, for joining us here on ET. Now, first things first, I've given you some of the insights for all those viewers who are watching, but take us to the key insights, the key takeaways of this report.
So I think this report sort of brought out some interesting points. We saw one, the IPO market was a huge exit for a lot of funds. I mean, a lot of investors. The interesting thing the report brought out is that folks are now again going back to, preference for secondary sales and buyouts versus IPO. So I think, you have it right there. We saw a lot, as you said, Gen AI is big, but also consumer. So we're sort of seeing two extremes. One side, we're seeing folks focusing on, sort of taking the safe haven with predictable business models. And on the other side, a lot towards AI and Gen AI and sort of thinking out of the box. What else did we see? I think it brought a lot of insight also, still in terms of geographies, Bangalore, Delhi, and Mumbai still sort of dominate the startup ecosystem. So that was sort of a good, consistency in there. A lot of, still founders, backing strong, credible founders is the focus of early stage investing. And what else? I think we're also hoping for higher deal momentum. So I think you saw a lot more activity in 2004. Interestingly, the total quantum deployed in early stage was lower, but a lot more deals were done in 2024, and also larger check sizes.
Okay.
So that was another interesting, more closer towards higher than 500,000 for early stage,
Okay.
going up to $2 million. So those were some of the key insights that we saw in the.
All right. So essentially, Tarana, what you're stating is that investors are expecting deal volume to grow this year with respect to the startup ecosystem. But what do you think are going to be, the key factors that are driving to get this push? You said that there's going to be a number of deals are going to be larger, and of course the check sizes are also going to be larger. But we do see that there is, of course, geopolitical uncertainty, and that is weighing in on investors' minds. So what is keeping the robustness around, of course, this activity that's happening in the startup ecosystem in terms of deal?
So I think just to point out and clarify, this is early stage. So not growth or late stage, I'm talking about early stage.
Yes.
I think the momentum is there. Even this year, we've seen a lot more deals happening in early stage. There is dry powder. I think folks, or rather investors, are just being more disciplined on how they're investing. But there is dry powder, there is keenness to invest. And as we see AI and, we've seen a lot of consumer startups get funded. And we're also seeing that, with AI and Gen AI, a lot of deals that have not, sort of under the radar, but all investors are sort of funding these. So I think there's a little more positivity. There is geopolitical concerns, but I think we're sort of on the early stage. It's isolated.
Right. It's isolated, and early stage is not really a concern for investors when it comes to investing in the startup ecosystem, and that momentum is continuing, and you say that this momentum is going to continue till the very end of this year as well. But, Tarana, help me also understand, your report says that Gen AI has gained strong momentum with, 50% of investors already deploying capital in the space. Now, the big question is, we see a lot of activity happening in the AI space. You do have chatbots, you have other models as well. So where are these investments really going, and which segment of AI are driving most number of investments from all of these companies? Because remember, this is a new technology that's just growing. It is seeing a lot of investments, but I'm sure investors are focused on some select sectors, some select segments within AI.
So I think it's actually a mix, and it's open when we speak to investors. So this insight doesn't come from our report. This is more with conversations we have with investors. I think it's it's across the board, to be honest. It's, it has to do some of them, some of the companies or rather investors we speak to, we get insights on they're looking at something in HR, in financial services, in security, of course, in consumer related, right? It could be in terms of insights on consumers, customer service. So it's across the board.
Okay.
I think everyone's being, it's
So
also
you're
they have to,
suggesting
right?
that it's
It's so
across the
early.
board, and right now there is a lot of bullishness. Yes.
Yes, I said it's also very early, so everyone's sort of willing to take
Right.
those bets
Right.
right now. I think with time we'll sort of see a little more focus to this.
Okay. Okay, Tarana, let me look at, another finding that you've mentioned, and you mentioned in your findings that 70% of investors are tracking GenAI actively, 50% are already deploying capital in this space. You also mentioned about the IPO segment. You mentioned that 50% of investors, they cited IPO mispricing as the key reason for post-listing underperformance. Now, let me ask you about the IPO segment. Of course, we've seen a lot of robustness, a lot of bullishness, a lot of activity last year. This year as well, Grow has reportedly filed confidentially its papers as well, and we are also looking forward to very many IPOs from the consumer space, from the tech space as well. But there were talks that perhaps what's happening across the globe has led to some sort of a blip in that growth. Are you also hearing that from investors or people whom you have surveyed? And is that going to ebb, or is caution going to be a key feature so far as the IPO market is concerned?
I think it's mixed personally. I think it's mixed. You're hearing mixed things, but I think a lot of strong, good companies will still go for the IPO. So in our portfolio, we have a few of them who intend to go for the IPOs as well, and we're pretty bullish on those. I'm not sure if I can name those, so I'm going to put, just recently, of course, Ather did it, and then last year Office did from our portfolio. And so I think I would say that strong business models will still go to the IPO market and get, and some may just, push it a bit, but overall, I still think that it's a viable exit for a lot of growth stage companies.
Okay, so one final question, Tarana, before we let you go. What then is the outlook, according to your report, for the rest of this year and, of course, this financial year overall, which essentially means till the March of 2026? Which segments are going to see a boost? You've mentioned AI, there's consumer startups also you've mentioned, but which other sectors are going to see
I think
momentum? What are going to be the key trends to watch out for in the startup ecosystem? Are we seeing more? Are we going to see more of startups going to see a flip back to India? What exactly are we going to see? If you could line up 5 trends from that
Sure.
report.
So I think you'll see a lot more activity also in B2B, the B2B segment, along with, of course, Gen AI and consumer. I do still believe that a lot of companies will flip back to India. Um, I uh, I do think activity will continue, and if not, I mean, in the venture ecosystem, you have to be optimistic. So I do believe that optimism is there because there is a keenness to invest out here. So all said and done, and India is still one of the key. Our fundamentals are strong, and there is a lot of interest too in India globally and within the country. Uh, and fifth trend, I think we'll see a lot more. We will continue to sort of see strong founders getting funded. I'm hoping that this will come with a lot more ref checks and governance. And so I think that's another thing that you might see given everything going on.
Absolutely, and a focus on governance is quite critical, Tarana, to keep the ecosystem going and growing in a healthy fashion. Tarana, thank you very much for taking the time out and speaking to us right here on ET Now on that report.
You're welcome. Thanks. Thank you. Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, with that, it's time for us to slip into a quick break, a super short break. Be right back. We'll be right here.